A Tall&Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 41, and Everyone Needs a Little Hero, Chapter 28. True Colors Revealed, Part 1. Ray was a jumble of emotions for the next few days. After going to Theo's apartment and finding him on the ground shaking and obviously not feeling well, he and Hero had no choice but to call emergency services. It was the first time Ray had ever used a phone as an actual phone. He knew how to play games and work different apps, but actually dialing a number and talking to a human on the other end was a whole new experience. Plus, he had technically broken a sacred borrower rule without actually breaking it, talking to humans. Granted, the operator didn't know that he was a borrower, so it made for a fine line to walk. Still, it meant that Theo was safe in the hospital getting the treatment he needed. Theo's phone had gone off a few times, and Ashlyn handled all of the logistics in getting care for Theo's little sister, Bella, as well as getting in touch with Theo when the time came. Just like when Ashlyn had to talk to Sam and Eliza, making references to knowing about the borrowers and ensuring that the secret stayed safe was a bit of a trick. Still, they managed without incident, and Theo was scheduled to come home within a week or so. He was feeling so good that he actually wanted to talk to Ray over the phone, which Ashlyn happily obliged. "So, they say it was called sepsis?" asked Ray, as he sat in front of the phone and listened to Theo, who was on speaker. "Yeah, apparently one of the bottles had been festering for a while, and when I got cut with it, I ended up getting a nasty infection. I didn't even feel it because, well, I don't have feeling in my legs. I just knew I was cut. Next thing I knew, I was feeling so sick and tired on the ground. You saved me, dude," said Theo. Ray beamed and shrugged, even though Theo couldn't see him. "Well, I was just trying to help. It was a bit of a trick getting you to stay awake and everything," replied Ray. "I can't wait to see you when you get back, and you definitely need to meet Ashlyn." "Yeah, I sure do. Tell her thanks again for helping with bells and all that. Seriously, I owe you all one," said Theo. "Don't think twice about it. Happy to help," stated Ray cheerfully. He glanced over and saw Ashlyn gesturing that lunch was ready, which unfortunately was the signal for him to jump off of the phone. "Hey, I see it's lunchtime for us here. Get some rest and let me know when you're going to be back, okay?" "Will do." The line cut out and Ray pushed himself up, stretching as big as he could before walking over to the edge of the counter. "Sorry I ran a little late," he said as Ashlyn rounded the corner to the kitchen and held out her hand for him to ascend. "Not at all. I'm sorry to cut it short. Theo seems like a great friend," smiled Ashlyn. Keeping her hand level, she made sure Ray was stable before spinning around and sitting down at the kitchen table where everyone else was waiting. They made their own sandwiches and talked about next steps for moving from the apartment into the house Ashlyn had taken them to go see. "Right now the house is pending an inspection, so hopefully they don't find any termites, water damage, or anything wrong with the foundation or roof or HVAC system," said Ashlyn. Almost all of those words went right over Ray's head, so he just nodded and listened as Soren asked for further explanation. "Basically, if there's something wrong with the house, we can get a better price because we have to fix it ourselves." "Ah," said Soren as he handed Maisie a much smaller version of his own sandwich, which she happily chewed on as she bounced up and down. "That's a good thing. So, what do we need to do? Anything?" "Well, at the moment, we can consolidate everything we need into boxes and start labeling them," said Ashlyn, already processing everything she needed to prepare for the move. "Well, that'll be easy for us," chuckled Dorian, as he stayed hunched over his scrap of paper he had been scribbling on for the past hour. Ray didn't say much because of the tightness in his chest. He had been thinking something over and over for a while, and it was nagging at him every time the thought of moving came creeping into his mind. There was a part of him that really wanted to stay. Ray knew what it meant, but he couldn't help but feel it in his bones. He had friends here, Theo and Hero for one, and he could do a lot of good in the community with his inventions. Ray knew it meant he probably would never see his brothers or niece again, which left him at a loss for words. He felt, in a word, torn. Still, he knew families stayed together, and there was no sense in trying to make an argument that he should get to stay or, at the very least, come by and visit. So, instead, he finished his sandwich in silence and helped sweep up the crumbs, his mind muddled with emotional decisions. "Hey, Ashlyn," Ray said. "Do you think I could go hang out with Hero today? If you don't need me, that is." "Sure thing. Need a hand?" Ashlyn asked, to which Ray nodded. "Yes, please. Thank you." Ray fastened his gizmos and gadgets to his sides, and then Ashlyn lifted him up onto the counter, where he vanished into the walls. Now that they were mostly alone, Dorian vanishing back to his studio with a wild, creative look in his eyes, Ashlyn looked at Soren curiously as he played with Maisie. "Did Ray seem a little off to you today?" Ashlyn asked. Soren, giving Maisie her stuffed bunny back, now that her hands were no longer crummy, nodded. "Yeah, I noticed it too. Do you think it has something to do with his friend?" Soren asked. Ashlyn sighed and shrugged. "I think it has something to do with the move. He was pretty quiet at the house, and he just gets quiet when we talk about it. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him about it later," muttered Ashlyn as she skirted her fingers toward Maisie, who howled with laughter as she darted away from Ashlyn and back to Soren. "I'll figure it out later." "Nah, I'll talk to him if I catch him doing it again," decided Soren. "Until then, I actually have a couple of errands I need to run today. Would you mind watching over the mischief maker?" "Errands? You need something? Or just a mental break?" grinned Ashlyn, as she leaned forward and, with expert precision, kissed Soren on his back. Instantly, his cheeks were bright pink as he scratched the back of his neck bashfully. "I actually do need to grab a few things, specifically for Ray's birthday, as well as a few other odds and ends. Plus, I need to make sure my skills don't dull," said Soren, facing Ashlyn. "Well, I guess I can keep an eye on our little mischief maker. Just be careful while you're out and about, okay?" Ashlyn requested. Soren, with an "I know" sort of shrug, motioned for Ashlyn to lean over to him. The two of them kissed briefly before Soren hurried across the table, hook in hand, and slid down the chair leg to vanish under the couch and into the walls. Ashlyn, alone with Maisie, sighed as her heart continued to flutter. "Well, little girl, looks like it's just you and me. Let's see what we can get into." Hero walked along the familiar passage, down the wires, past the rafters, and then jumped over a small gap in the walls to go and see his friend, Ray. It had been a few days since the two of them caught up, and Hero was genuinely worried about Theo, the human Ray had just met. Theo had gone to the hospital, which Hero knew was a place Sam had been on multiple occasions. Hopefully, Theo was getting better and would be back soon. Until then, Hero elected to go and visit Ray at his home with Ashlyn. However, Hero didn't need to go all the way to Ashlyn's apartment because he met Ray halfway there. To Hero, Ray seemed a little distracted. The two of them almost passed one another before Hero stopped his friend, snagging his attention by tapping him on the shoulder. hey, grinned the bright, green-eyed borrower teen as he held out his hip lamp so Ray could see him. It took Ray a second to recognize Hero, which, again, wasn't quite like him. Oh, hey, Hero. Sorry, I didn't even see you. Just stuck in my head, I guess, sighed Ray, chuckling lightly and reaching up to scratch the back of his head. Stuck in your head? About what? Prompted Hero as he readjusted his hip lamp. Ray averted his eyes, staring at a clump of wires at the base of the wall joist. Some emotion danced in Ray's eyes that Hero couldn't quite read. Disheartened? Reluctance? His friend certainly looked torn. Before Hero could prompt Ray again, he responded. Well, can you keep something secret? For me, I mean. It's less of a secret and more of a thought I keep having, said Ray. He fumbled slightly over his words as he tried to piece together what was on his mind. Hero felt a bit uneasy about secrets. The last time he tried to keep a secret, specifically about his human interactions, it ended up getting everyone in trouble and put the entire borrower community in danger. On the other hand, Ray was his friend. It seemed like he really wanted to get something off of his chest, too. Hero made up his mind. Sure, I think I can manage. What's on your mind? You're not in trouble, are you? About the whole Theo thing? Asked Hero. The borrower teen shook his head and leaned against a nearby wall joist. He folded his arms across his chest and sighed, his breath coming out in a puff that made the hair by his face flutter. No, I'm not in trouble, but I've just been thinking about things recently, and I don't know how I want to go about it, said Ray. Do you want to talk about it? Hero asked after another minute or so of silence. It's okay if you don't. No, it's not that. It's just... Ray sucked in a deep breath again. Then, while keeping his eyes averted, he continued. We're moving. The silence was tangible, filling the air like a dense mist. Ray? Leaving? Hero almost couldn't fathom it. It felt like they had just arrived. What? When? Asked Hero. I don't know. We'll be leaving soon. Our son found a house and took us all there. We went exploring, and it's a great place. We actually found some structures inside, so other borrowers used to live there. At least we think there used to be some borrowers there. There's a ton of space for all of us to have our own rooms if we wanted. There's a spot for Doreen's music and my inventing. It's nice, stated Ray. Hero felt a twist in his insides. This was a great opportunity. Hero would obviously miss his friend, but the adventures he was going to have were endless. He could be out in the open as much as he liked, and he could get an entire room to himself. It was here that Hero caught a glimpse of Ray's face, and he looked less enthusiastic about the move. While what Ray was saying was exciting, his tone sounded monotonous and crestfallen, as if Ray was trying to hype himself up for the move. But you don't want to move, Hero concluded. Ray's shoulders slumped ever so slightly before the borrower teen nodded subtly. No, not really. But why? You're gonna get to work on all of your inventions out in the open, plus you'll get to have all kinds of adventures, pointed out Hero in an attempt to make his friend feel better. That's the point, though, muttered Ray. I'll get to have these adventures by myself. I'll go back to making my inventions to help myself and no one else. Unless a new family moves in, it'll just be our family. And that's great and all. But the point of being an inventor is to create things, to make others' lives easier. And of course I know what staying means. It means I won't be able to see Soren or Dorian or Maisie ever again. It means I'll be out here living by myself. Sure, it would be with the community, but my inventions would be making a difference. I would be making a difference. Hiro was beginning to see where the conflict was for his friend. So, you're thinking you'd be trading one family for another? Stated Hiro. And that makes sense. And that makes you feel bad, and why you're feeling so conflicted. Ray's posture tightened as he wrapped his arms around himself a little tighter. Basically, he mumbled. The problem is I want both, but that doesn't make sense to me. I've always known what I wanted, and now I just feel torn. Hiro didn't envy his friend's position. He wouldn't know what to do if he had to choose. He had never moved someplace new in his whole life. To him, the move would be exciting, but it would be at the cost of losing his friends and family. He would never see the same beams and floors. He wouldn't see his human friends again. It would be the toughest decision of his life if he were in Ray's shoes. With a sigh, Hiro walked over and laid a hand on Ray's shoulder, gripping it tightly to comfort him. Well, it sounds like you have a bit of time to think about it, yeah? For now, let's go and see if we can collect some more coins for Theo, and check up on everyone. Let's put your inventions to good use, said Hiro. Ray managed a partial smile and nodded slowly as he absorbed the information. Yeah, that sounds good. It'll take my mind off of things anyway, said Ray. Together, the two of them ventured through the familiar passages toward Theo's home. They found a couple of other oddly colored bills, which were pinkish with odd symbols on them, as well as a few more coins. Some of the coins had little notches cut out of them, but money was money, and any little bit could help Theo in his business ventures. After dropping off their found borrowings, the boys decided they should check the lower floors since they hadn't been down there yet. Hiro also wanted Ray to listen to Eliza's singing if they got the chance. The staircase down was thankfully unoccupied, and the boys made quick work of going down and exploring beneath the floorboards. Unfortunately, they only found a few copper-colored coins, which they stowed away in Ray's pack, and Eliza was not home. Still, they got what they came for. "Ready to head back?" asked Hiro as he secured the last strap. Ray rolled his shoulders a few times as he checked the weight distribution on his back. "Yeah, I think everything is secured," he replied. His pack rustled as he adjusted his hip lamp, ducking under one of the carved entryways when they heard something shuffle down the hall. They instinctually turned toward the sound, both boys holding their breath as their keen ears homed in on the sound. There it was again, a rustling, followed by a slight padding. "You heard it too?" whispered Ray. Hiro nodded. Neither boy took their eyes off of the darkness leading further under the floors. Ray thought hard about where they were in the building. Technically, they should be by the front door. What was it that they were hearing? Was it a mouse? A rat? Maybe the skitter of a spider? Ugh. Ray pulled out his pin dagger and gripped it tight as he stepped forward in front of Hiro. "Hello?" Ray called. His keen eyes searched the darkness in front of him, which was barely illuminated by his hip lamp. Then, in a harsh whisper, someone called back. "Hello?" A shiver shot up Ray's spine as he watched a pair of pale brown eyes practically emerge from the darkness. Pale features illuminated by Ray's hip lamp spread across the stranger's face as he padded forward. The borrower looked to be around Soren's age, and had light brown hair that matched his eyes. His cheeks were slightly sunken, and dark circles were under his eyes, making them look more sunk in than they already were. His clothes were tattered, and he looked like he had missed a week's worth of meals. Still, there was a timid relief in his expression as he laid eyes on Ray and Hero. There are others. Oh, thank goodness. I thought I was the only one here, he said, voice trembling as he stumbled forward toward the boys. Ray's heart leapt into his throat, and he instinctually pushed Hero back as he held out his pin. Easy there, friend, said Ray firmly, while keeping his tone calm. Are you all right? The borrower nodded as he collapsed to his knees, eyes fixated on Ray's weapon. Yes, I'm all right. I just arrived. I thought I was alone, whimpered the man. Ray glanced back at Hero just for a moment, and he was thankful beyond words that Hero also seemed to be on high alert. The man began to speak again, which drew Ray's attention back to him. Are there others, or are you boys alone? Ray hesitated to answer the question. Something about this borrower seemed a bit off, desperate even, and it made him uneasy. Still, borrowers were supposed to stay together. No matter what, Ray knew he needed to try and help this stranger. No, we're not alone, replied Ray. He wanted to give just enough information to help, but not enough if something was wrong. Are you? Me? No, I'm not alone. My friends are a little further away. I was scouting ahead, see if there were any good borrowings here and if this place was safe, replied the borrower. At this, Hero's compassionate, altruistic soul got the better of him. He hoisted his pack off of his shoulders and fished out his water ration and bread he was saving for lunch. Knowing Ray had his back, he stepped past his friend toward the borrower. The stranger's eyes gleamed at seeing the food and water, and before Hero could offer politely, the man took the food from Hero's outstretched hands and began snarfing it down, practically inhaling it all at once. Oh, thank you, he mumbled over and over between bites. You're welcome, said Hero. The teenage hero glanced back at his friend and saw that he was just as much at a loss of what to do to help this other borrower. Did they bring him back home? Did they leave him here? Neither of them had additional supplies to offer the borrower. Sensing the change in the air, the borrower piped up, glancing nervously between Hero and Ray. My name is Emil. You two have names? Asked the stranger. Yes, sorry. I'm Hero, and this is my friend Ray. You said you were scouting? How many are in your group? Asked Hero. Now that he was closer, Hero noticed the man was shaking slightly, as if he were cold. My group? Well, including me, if five. We're just down the road, migrating. Nasty business, said Emil, voice trailing off as he visibly shuddered. Hero glanced back at Ray again, unsure of what to do. On one hand, they couldn't just leave him here to go and get supplies. They could try, but the borrower might end up venturing off and, in this seemingly frail state, might encounter something he couldn't handle. On the other hand, though, both Ray and Hero felt uneasy about this guy, and bringing him into the heart of the borrower community didn't feel like the wisest choice. Hero's compassion won out once again. He was ultimately one borrower. What could he do on his own? At any rate, it felt smarter to keep this guy close, rather than leave him on his own. Do you have supplies? Food and water and such? Asked Hero. Emil shook his head. Then why don't you come with us? My family has extra supplies that you can take back to your group. Unless you want to go get them, we can wait. No, said Emil sharply as he cut off Hero. Emil cleared his throat nervously as he shook his head, once again looking meek and timid. What I mean is that you would be waiting a while. I should get the supplies and bring them back. Startled by his outburst, both Ray and Hiro had to take a breath to cure their racing hearts. Sure, yeah, that works. Let's go then, whenever you're ready, that is, offered Hiro. It took a minute, but Emil pushed himself up to his feet and followed behind Ray and Hiro faithfully as they led him through the passages, up the main staircase, and then toward the elevator shaft. The whole way, Emil quietly asked question after question, to which Ray would respond in short-form answers. How many borrowers live here? There are a few of us. How long have you been here? Not long. We just moved here. Do you know if this place is safe? Yes, and it is safe. They made it to the elevator shaft and called for the lift, which immediately fascinated Emil. You mean you have permanent structures here? He asked disbelievingly. Yes, said Ray, making sure to respond before Hiro could. Amazing. I didn't think it was possible, muttered Emil. The lift arrived, and the elevator operator, Clink, struck up a conversation with Emil immediately. "Oi, a newcomer. Haven't had many of those in a twitch," said Clink. Ray listened as Emil responded to Clink's questions. All the while, his sixth sense was on high alert. Emil seemed nervous and malnourished. Borrowers were durable and could go long periods of time without food to survive. Ray remembered how that felt when he moved to Ashland's first home with his father and brothers. Never did he look like Emil. At least, he didn't think he did anyway. The lift came to a screeching halt, and Hiro led the way through the corridors toward his home. As they passed through the main thoroughfare and saw all of the other borrowers trading supplies and conversing openly, Emil's eyes grew wider and wider. Ray watched Emil closely, noting how he seemed to be trembling still. Was he that excited? Was the scene that much of a shock for him? Ray took a deep breath, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this guy. He sadly didn't have time to address it, though, because they had crossed the threshold of Hiro's home. Immediately, Prim and Casper welcomed the newcomer, sitting him down and wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. They began questioning his physical state, to which Emil was able to timidly answer. Emil explained that he was from down the road and that he and his group had to flee when they thought someone had seen them. They wandered the streets and were caught up in a storm, nearly washed down countless drains, and were attacked by creatures and monsters that, for a human, would have been cute and cuddly. Prim and Casper listened intently as they prepared a pack of supplies for Emil and his companions. They made sure there was food, water, a few blankets, and even a few extra clothing items to help combat the cold. They even gave him a spare hip lamp. "Thank you," mumbled Emil. You're too kind." "It's no trouble at all. If you need help getting settled or getting everyone in, just let us know," said Prim. Ray, the whole time, kept to himself. He stayed quiet as Emil muttered his thanks over and over. He wanted to ask Emil more questions, but each time he tried to pry a little further, Casper or one of the other Rafters children would intervene, saying it wasn't polite to ask questions like that. Ray didn't think they were hard questions. What was your old home like? If it was an apartment, why not just move to another unit? Humans don't always talk to one another. You could have been safe and didn't have to move during the winter season. Why wouldn't you all move in a group? Is someone hurt? Why don't you have any supplies with you? If you're scouting, wouldn't you bring supplies with you? Ray's questions made Emil's eyes dart around nervously. Emil would seemingly retreat into himself, pulling the blanket further over his shoulders. To Ray, this new borrower was avoiding the questions, and Ray wanted to know why. At the end of the meeting, Emil said he would just take the lift back down and head out to go retrieve his group. He didn't require any assistance getting back because he remembered the way. Ray had half a mind to follow him, but he didn't want to go alone. He would have asked Hero, but he was needed to help start dinner. "All right, I'll see you around then," called Ray to Hero as they watched Emil ride the lift with Clink all the way back down to the basement level. "Sure thing, see you soon," called Hero. Ray made it 2 steps before his step hesitated. He needed to know something. "Hey, Hero," asked Ray. His friend turned and looked at him expectantly, waiting for his question. "Did you think anything about Emil was, I don't know, off?" "He seemed a little frazzled and nervous, but that's kind of to be expected," said Hero. "Really? Nothing seemed off to you?" prompted Ray. The hair on the back of his neck was still raised. Hero thought about it for a minute before something seemed to switch in his mind. "I mean, he did seem a little off, but I'm not sure what could be causing it. Why? What are you thinking?" asked Hero. The young borrower's keen green eyes read his friend's body language carefully. Ray, in a word, seemed suspicious of Emil. It was true, the borrower seemed a little jittery, but wouldn't anyone be just as nervous coming into a strange environment? "I don't know," mumbled Ray. "I just don't think we're getting the whole story from him. Anyway, I'll see you later." Hero waved goodbye to his friend and watched him jog up the wall nail steps to the next level before walking around the elevator shaft to vanish into corridors of darkness. Ray did have a point. Hero did think the other borrower was acting odd. But what was the reason? Emil trekked back down the corridor, body shaking violently. What had he done? What was he doing? He knew what was going to happen. He was told what was going to happen. Still, here he was going back. The cost was a terrible one, but it was the only thing he could do. What other choice did he have? They couldn't fight. They were powerless against the humans. He took the path back and hoisted himself up through the pipes. He was shaking violently, knowing what was in store for him. As he rounded the edge of the pipe, he saw the column of light further ahead. It was like an ominous beacon calling to him. He hated it. He hated everything about this. But what choice did he have? He had to do it. For them. The moment he made it to the edge of the light, those horrid tongs emerged from the light and plucked him up off of the ground by his backpack. The sensation made him weak in the knees, but he knew better than to cry out. Instead, he shook and curled in on himself. His breath shallowed. Everything hurt. He winced as he felt his ribs creak inside his chest. Thank goodness the other borrowers hadn't asked him to lift his shirt. They would have seen the column-like bruises of the human's fingers all over his body. "So, you came back. Was starting to wonder," said the snide voice of the human holding him aloft. Emil bit back a whimper as he shied away from the human's gaze. Those dead, doll-like eyes fixated on Emil as he was held mere inches away from the human's face. Austin. That was his name. Austin, that abomination of a human who set those clever traps and sprayed his home with that noxious gas that paralyzed him and his family. "And what do you have here?" Austin asked as he spun Emil around to look at his pack. "Find this on your own, did you?" There was no use in trying to hide it. This was his job. This was what he was set loose to do. For the sake of his family, he had to answer. No, you were right. There are others, lots, stammered Emil. Austin smiled callously. Good thing you know who pays for your meal ticket. Where are they? Demanded Austin. Elevator shaft, whimpered Emil. Austin's indelicate fingers reached up and pressed a particularly sore bruise on Emil's chest. Well then, we have work to do, grinned Austin. And we have you to thank. Austin stood at mind-numbing speed, making Emil's insides churn as he was spun around and carried carelessly with the tongs back into the van, labeled Pest Control and Extermination. The human chuckled to himself as he ducked inside and opened the top of the door to Emil's solitary cage. Wait, please, you said I could see my family, pleaded Emil. I did, but I didn't say when. Stupid little pest. You're lucky they're getting food tonight, which is more than I could say for you. Hopefully the other little creatures fed you while you were taking your sweet time, spat Austin. Emil watched in horror as Austin reached up and wrapped his fingers completely around Emil's body. He tried struggling to get away, but it was no use. Austin's sweltering fingers engulfed Emil as he gave a little squeeze. Remember, if you warned them like last time, you are not the one who will be punished. You might be able to run away, but they won't. I'll make sure of it, snarled Austin. Emil, without warning, was dropped nearly a foot into the clear plastic container, slamming hard onto the ground, which knocked the wind right out of him. Well incapacitated, Austin used the tongs and a wicked-looking knife to cut away the backpack on Emil's back. The stove clicked and flickered to life as Austin began cooking a simple meal for himself, while Emil dragged himself to the corner and hungered in. He hoped the other borrowers in the building would run away. He hoped they would be safe, but he also hoped that Austin got his way. It was the only way to save his family, and the others Austin had in captivity. Emil could only hope that the other borrowers would understand, if he ever saw them again.